should help these particular jurisdictions to provide quality elementary and secondary educations for their children. We'll start with this first question with Mr. Altenberg.
Thanks, Bruce.
I think this is a 90-second answer.
Okay, thank you. One of the biggest challenges that we have in our K-12 public education program is a focus on teaching to the test. We've got standards of learning, and the standards of learning program push our teachers to narrow the curriculum to the point where our students are studying over 30 curriculum days per year preparing for a 5-hour test. And my daughter's in the 3rd grade and she's taking the SOLs for the first time this year. I tell you, she's been studying for those tests since November. I've never seen her stressed out about anything else in her life other than a swim meet, and that's over in 90 seconds or less. But the fact that she's been studying since November for these exams in the 3rd grade does them a disservice and does us a disservice. The other area where Richmond can certainly be much more helpful than they are is the allocation of funding and the standards of quality program, the local composite index. The way that funding is allocated throughout the state, Alexandria is 130th out of 135 localities in the amount of state funding coming back, our tax dollars coming back into the area for public schools. Arlington County is 131st out of 135. We certainly can do better for our students by providing our teachers the resources they need to teach our kids how to be successful after school. And the approach that they've taken so far, focused on the standards of learning exams and being underfunded, certainly is not doing them well for us.
Mr. Lee.
Larry's certainly right about the standards of learning. That's probably the biggest complaint I hear as I talk to parents, as I talk to teachers. These tests are not for the kids. They're not made for the kids. They're made for the state. And most teachers tell me that they would rather evaluate the kids based on the kids' needs, not based on the state's needs. I completely agree with Larry about teaching to the test. And he's also right about money, that we get a very small share. Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax County too. Northern Virginia doesn't get its fair share. There's some other things I'd like to do though. I'd like universal pre-K. I think it's very important. We all know that a single mom working hard cannot give her child the same kind of reading skills and care, particularly if she's working 2-3 jobs, that more affluent parents can give. My mom was a 1st grade school teacher. I had all the advantages. I had fantastic advantages. I had a school teacher right in my own home, and that gave me a great head start. Not every kid has that head start. I was actually talking to Brock Pika about this a few weeks ago. I support universal pre-K, so does he, but he was talking that he thinks that we can get Republicans to do universal access to pre-K, which is a start. It's a start. Basically, it would allow everyone to have access to pre-K. We even talked about how we get it done. He asked me how I'd get it done. I said I'd find a Republican who's willing to support it, write the bill for them, and then let them take all the credit, because you can get a lot of things done when you don't take credit for something. I also want to make higher education more affordable. I have a plan to do that, so I'm about to run out of time. Basically, I would incentivize higher education, not just four-year colleges, but vocational schools, to keep their prices at the level of inflation or below. That's where I would give the state and federal money.
So the question was specifically about K-12 education and secondary education. So I want to start there, but it's important to note, as Mark did, that pre-K sets the tone for everything that happens after, and there are in fact Republicans interested in working on pre-K. Representative Peace, Tad Greason are folks who are already interested in working on it, and we could go down and find some ways to work with them. On SOLs, I think it's not just about teaching to the test. It's about the way when the test happens and what it's used for. The test happens at the end of the year, so a student who doesn't do well has no opportunity for a teacher to work with them to help them do better next time. The ultimate goal is actually to move, and we moved in some ways in that direction this year, to more of a badge system that's really about student mastery. And I think helping to figure out how we take the very complicated system we have now and move to testing that's actually about helping students is a crucial step in this. We also need to talk about capacity. We have a major capacity problem in almost every elementary school in the city, and it is, as Larry said, based in the local composite index. I'm a little bit of a math geek. There's a reason our school funding score is low on that list. The measure of economics in the local composite index is median income, which if everybody makes the same is a perfectly good way to do it. The problem is it doesn't account for the economic variability, and so the fact that 2/3 of Alexandria students are on free and reduced lunch compared to 1/3 in Arlington doesn't factor into the formula. And we need to figure out how to change that formula. The other thing I think we need to do is empower our teachers, and it's the last thing I'll touch on. We need to empower our teachers. We adjudicate and send to jail more students in Alexandria than, not in Alexandria, in Virginia than anywhere in the country. And part of it is we need to give more tools to our teachers. Thank you.
Mr. Tom.
The issue of education is very personal to me. I was raised by my grandmother, who was never formally educated, and for her, making sure that her kids and grandkids had access to a high-quality education was really important because it's the key to social and economic mobility for all Virginians and all Americans. I think it starts with making sure that students are ready to learn, and I support efforts to expand pre-K and early education. I believe that we need to make sure we are funding our schools so we have adequate resources and good teachers that are, so key to the success of students. And finally, I really want to prioritize higher education because it's been, very personal to me. In many ways, I was the first to go to college here in the U.S. in my family. And here in Virginia, we have 15 public universities that are of great, very high quality. And we have to make sure that it continues to be affordable for all. That's a very important thing for our workforce. And when the cost of UVA for freshmen is going up by 11% each year, that's just simply not sustainable. And we have to figure out ways to control college costs.
Mr. Biden.
Well, I'm a proud product of Virginia's public schools, elementary, middle, high school, undergraduate, graduate, and I know that we have amazing teachers and amazing schools all over the Commonwealth. The problem isn't with the schools. The problem, in large part, is because the state has never fulfilled its obligation to fund the schools. As other candidates have alluded to, we get the short end of the stick, especially in Alexandria, where instead of the state paying more than half of the cost, as they always said they would, we pay 80% of the cost. Now, a lot of the candidates have spoken about adding more funding and more resources for schools, but the money has to come from somewhere. And the big question is always, how do you pay for all of these great programs? I think at the end of the day, we reap what we sow, and we have to invest in the things that matter to us. In Virginia, we have a very flat income tax. It's not progressive. It doesn't account for differences in people's means and ability to pay. And it's virtually never touched for generations. And so one way of injecting additional funding into schools is to ask people who make millions of dollars a year to pay a little bit more than people who make $18,000 a year. Because today, the $18,000 earner and the billionaire pay exactly the same rate for the income tax. So while I would love to say let's just make the schools better by believing in them, we have to fund them. And making a progressive income tax would be one way of accomplishing that.